And so you said that this was the first unit that you saw combat.
Yes.
So where are you going, and what year was this that you took your unit out?
Yeah, I went to Iraq, so we were pretty heavily involved in Iraq, and of course, the surge in Iraq happens around 2006, and we had come in just before the surge, where they extended the deployments out to 15 months, and yeah, so I went. This is 2006, I believe. I deployed to Iraq, and I'm a brigade executive officer at this time. So a brigade is 3 to 5,000 men, several battalions. Again, four to 700, 400 to 700 people. Five or six of those battalions under a brigade. And so I had done my time as a battalion staff officer, and then I moved up to be a brigade staff officer, which was again a pinnacle assignment and one I'm selected for that not everybody gets. So it was a real hallmark for me and an indicator that I was competitive in my career. Well, I got picked to be the brigade executive officer, and that's where I went off to Iraq with that unit.
Okay. So how is it from your perspective being out there? Because the rest of us, like I said, I was a corporal, I think, when I went out to Iraq for the second time.
Yeah,
Um, we see it from the ground, and we get orders from higher up. So how is
yeah,
it from your level, being a major, and like you
yep,
say, you've got thousands of people under your command. What's it like looking down and giving out those task operations and
sure.
and kind of planning that side of things?
Well, it's hard to explain, but it certainly is a dose of reality. It's like, you have all these years of training for this moment, and, you've finally been put onto the court, if you will. You're finally in the game, and the seriousness of all of it and the reality of all of it hits home. And so everything you say and do, all the plans that you make, and how you assist commanders with making very important decisions is just exacerbated. It's so much more important. It was dangerous, and we were losing people. I mean, we lost 50, 60 people in that deployment. And so it was tough and it was dangerous. And we were just trying to figure out, how to crack the code of, getting ahead of the enemy and defeating the enemy. And so a very eye-opening experience for me. Very difficult. Just one of the hardest things I've ever done because it's just 24/7. It's constant. There's no breaks, and it's very dangerous. And you're just every day. It just continues relentless.
And did you say that was 15 months for yourself?
I left at I think at the 13-month mark. So I was they were moving officers around, just getting some career progression going. And I had done typically you do a year as a battalion staff officer and then you move somewhere else. Well, I had done a year plus, and I got to I think the 13-month mark of that deployment, and then they moved me, which brought me back to Fort Bragg, and then brought another person in behind me. So I stayed with that unit, but I was in the rear detachment
Right,
for
right.
them back at Fort Bragg for a few months.
So whilst you're out in Iraq, is there anything that you can share with us? A moment, a task, an operation that sticks in your mind?
hmm Um, well, gosh, it's as a brigade staff officer, I was not necessarily on the front lines as much. I did get out and I was out there a few times. We had an IED go off, but it was kind of far enough away from me where it didn't affect me much. But I think it was just the death of soldiers and paratroopers, and when that happened, and dealing with that opened up. I lost friends there. I mean, I had a few officers I was really good friends with that were killed, and I guess John Grassball would be one that really sticks out to me. That is a wonderful young man and an incredible officer, and he just got married before we deployed. And gosh, this guy was going places. I just thought he was super talented, and he was killed in an IED strike, and that really hit home to me. That my God, this is I don't know what to think and how you handle that. I think I don't know if it was any one scenario. I think it was a series of them that really gave me that exposure to combat, showed me how serious this is, maybe hardened me in a bit because I would command in combat later on. That really jumped out. But yeah, I think it's the people that were lost and the combat scenarios we were in. And I think that the last one was I just we as an army, and this is a whole different topic to get into, but we didn't quite know what we were doing. This was the transition between us trying to fight conventionally and us trying to fight as counterinsurgents. And I went into Iraq as a Cold Warrior, a Cold War warrior, very conventional, tank on tank, ship on ship, soldier on soldier, rifle on rifle. Well, we weren't in that kind of war. We weren't fighting a uniformed enemy. It wasn't tank on tank. We were fighting something that could bleed back into the society, and you just couldn't really put your thumb on it. And I felt stupid. I just felt like I could never figure out how to crack this nut. And so, all those things jump out to me from that deployment of what it did for me. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Still sound like a good learning curve for you, though. And I'm just going to ask, like, in your position that you were there, did you have some higher ranking officers that you managed to learn from whilst you were out there?
Oh yeah, 100%. I had several battalion commanders, lieutenant colonels above me that I watched operate. The deputy commander was a lieutenant colonel who I thought was very talented, and I had the good fortune of watching him operate. The brigade commander was a full colonel, and I learned a lot from him. We had a great relationship. They taught me a lot, and then there were some other senior officers above our organization that I didn't quite agree with. I didn't quite like how they led and some of the orders that were coming out of that headquarters. So I got to see the good and bad, I guess, and chalk up all those lessons to put into practice or avoid.
Mm. And yeah, like you say, what you can avoid. And I think that's what makes a good leader, is to look at others and
Sure,
take what you know is good and stop doing what you know is bad.
you bet.
So that's why you did so well by the sounds of it, because you could
Yeah,
filter
I,
that.
I I absolutely did. I mean, my successes are all a culmination of those experiences I had with others.
Mm, mm. So you come back from Iraq, and then are you do you deploy again whilst you're at the 82nd, or do you move
No,
on?
when I came back from Iraq, I was on the tail end of my time at Fort Bragg, and we were about to transition. So I think when I came back, I was only there a few more months, and that's when I was in the 82nd, I got picked up for Battalion Command.
Right.
And again, that is a lieutenant colonel level assignment, 400 to 700 soldiers, and it's very competitive. You get selected for those commands. Not everybody makes it. Again, this pyramid is starting to get really sharp. Well, I got selected, and it was going to be in Alaska, far
Okay.
away from Fort Bragg. So we were a few months out from uprooting the family and moving up to Alaska, where I would assume command, and then, of course, head to another combat deployment, which was Afghanistan, and my first experience there. So did a few more months at Fort Bragg. Wrapped up those assignments, sold our house. Really emotional move from it because I mean, we had grown as a family with two sons and all that at Fort Bragg, and then we moved up to Alaska, which was an amazing assignment.
Was it? Okay. So, yeah, tell us more about Alaska, because I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody that's been stationed there or even lived there.
Yeah, yeah.
All I picture it as a silly Brit is oh, we got a vehicle going past. You said there's 700 people. That's one of the 700. Anyway, so um, so yeah, in Alaska, I just picture it as being exceptionally cold.
Yes, stupid cold, we called it. 27 below zero in Fahrenheit. So, do the math there or the transition. But yeah, it was cold. Now, I was in Anchorage, Alaska. That's the capital. So we were at Fort Richardson, which is just outside of Anchorage. And that's warmer than the northern parts of Alaska, like Fairbanks, Fort Wainwright, which can get, 40, 60 below zero Fahrenheit. Very, very cold. But an amazing experience, and being away from the continental United States in a place where it was really about the culture up there was one of that pioneer spirit, that's that spirit of survival, where if you broke down on the side of the road, somebody would be there to help you because they knew the climate and it was so harsh that you needed to be there forever. So it was really an amazing experience of being up there and experiencing all that, the weather in the daylight, in the summer and the winter, where in the winter it would be light out maybe at 10, 11 a.m. and then get dark again at 2 p.m. And
Really?
then in the summer, the sunlight would stay out until 11, 2 or 3 in the morning.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh yeah, we had to put black trash bags on our windows just to sleep at night because it would be broad daylight out. It's just a neat experience of being up there and experiencing that. And of course, that was a hallmark assignment for me as a battalion commander. I was back in charge with command authority of this unit, and they were paratroopers, so I was right back in the airborne community again.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And am I right, Lieutenant Colonel? I mean, Lieutenant Colonel. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, lieutenant colonel. So I
Lieutenant
was
Colonel.
promoted to lieutenant colonel in Iraq, actually. I got selected by the Army, and they promoted me in Iraq while I was deployed. And I came back to Fort Bragg as lieutenant colonel, then went off to battalion command.
Ah, okay, okay. Whilst you were talking, I did a quick maths on my iPad. Minus 27 Fahrenheit is minus 32.78 Celsius.
Oof, oof.
That's cold.
That's stupid cold. Yeah, that is just
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
dangerous. I mean, you got to be careful in that because you could die in that kind of weather.
So yeah, I'm guessing like you had to wear all the gear so you didn't
Yes,
freeze and uh yeah, that's just a different type of life. Bloody hell, you went
it
to
is.
Hawaii
We used to
and
run
also
PT
Alaska.
in the morning. We'd go running with spikes on our sneakers.
Yeah,
And there was just these rubber, spikes that you would put on to get some traction because this place was covered in snow.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, very different,
So
but really beautiful and amazing. I mean, we had moose in our yard. I mean, everything was just really different, and it was wonderful. We loved it.
how do you how do the troops function? Because it's so cold. Surely you can't really do much outside unless you get geared up. And if you get geared up, that's really difficult to maneuver things, and vehicles must be maintained differently. Surely that's completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the care of equipment and care of self becomes so much more important because again, people can die in those kind of conditions. But we didn't let it stop us. It certainly slowed us a little bit. The weather and the terrain did, but we kept going. We'd go out and train in the middle of all that stuff, and jump out of airplanes at 99, 19 below zero.
Whoa.
Um, oof, crazy. I don't. I think I got a screw loose. I mean, who does that? Who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane?
Yeah, not only that, but yeah, in that ridiculous temperature.
Oh man.
Okay, question. So if you're jumping out of the plane and you're landing in that kind of temperature, do you have to land differently? Like, is there a different skill because you're landing on snow or ice or anything, or is it pretty much the same?
No, same concept, and it's called a parachute landing fall, a PLF, where you keep your feet and knees together, and you just kind of loosen your body a little bit. The worst thing you can do is tense up, and you just allow yourself to fall, almost like a banana, where you just kind of lay on the ground like that. So it's the same concept of keeping your feet and knees together, so you don't roll an ankle. It's a safer way to land, and of course,
Mm.
this is military parachuting. You're not landing softly; you're crashing to the ground because the parachutes are designed to get you out of the sky and on the ground as quickly as you can because you're a target coming all the way down.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's the same concept, but it can be difficult to see, and you get that ground rush, and it's all white. My God,
yeah. It must be difficult to see where to land. Like if you're looking at
absolutely,
the landing zone. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Just imagine what that might look like, because surely you can
yeah,
see your landing zone when it's all green and maybe a big white X. I don't know where you're gonna land, but when it's all white, it's very different. Very different.
yeah, totally,
And then you said of getting uh, the next deployment out to Afghan whilst you're
yeah.
with that lot. What can you share from that? And yeah, you're a lieutenant colonel at this point, aren't you?
I am, yeah. So that was, it was a wonderful 2 years, but it was a very stressful 2 years for us because we had that next deployment looming over our heads. We knew we were going, and we spent the year training hard and just crazy busy with a jam-packed schedule of getting ready for this deployment, taking in new soldiers, integrating them onto the team and going off and doing training exercises. I say we did 2 years in Alaska. I really did about 9 months because of all the time I was gone between training
Uh,
and the combat deployment. So it was very short for me, but my family was up there, obviously. And Yeah, it was tough. And that's, we went to Afghanistan during the surge. We deployed in 2009 and spent a year in southeastern Afghanistan on the Pakistan border. And just a difficult year. We lost soldiers, and we were fighting against a committed enemy. And I really had grown a lot as a counterinsurgent at that point, really understanding what modern warfare was all about. And my boss was really, really smart, taught me a lot. I learned so much from him as an officer, just teaching us about modern warfare and how we approach that. It was an incredible period of growth, and then of course bonding with. I had 380 soldiers, paratroopers total, and then in Afghanistan, I had a task force of about 780 soldiers and civilians, some contractors, and bonding with those people and sharing those experiences, was life changing and something that just is very difficult to describe to anybody. I mean, I'm surrounded by people that would take a bullet for me, and I would have done that for them, and that's intoxicating in terms of how relationships go and how deep that runs. So it was a profound experience for me. While we were there, I was on the search for Bo Bergdahl. If you remember that service member that got captured by or walked off of
Mm.
his base and got captured by the Taliban. We spent the better part of July of that year, 2009, looking for him. And I had never seen anything like it. I had so many assets, and the pace was crazy, and it was dangerous and all those things. And so that whole year was just an amazing experience altogether. And we did some good things. We had some successes, but we were just one unit in one year in a long campaign. It was just hard to cement that stuff so the next unit would follow exactly behind us.
Yeah. Did you find yourself more on the ground in that deployment compared
I
to
did.
Iraq?
I did. Yeah, I was out quite a bit, with my soldiers and meeting with Afghan leaders, and so I was out much more. I was a commander, so I needed to be, but I knew my place too. I wasn't on every combat operation, but I was in at the headquarters there, where I could bring assets to bear. That was my role. To be able to do those kind of things and make those decisions, because I was the only one that had authority to drop bombs from an aircraft or do other things. That was my role in that. But yeah, we were out all over the battlefield in that one.
Hmm. You mentioned about connecting with the locals. So did you do that fairly often?
Yes, all the time. I mean, that's what you do in counterinsurgency. You're trying to shift the population over to you and away from the insurgent. And so I knew my role to be that. And so I spent a lot of time trying to get a sense of what was happening inside these villages, what was causing the problems, what allowed the Taliban to come in and gain traction. And that's where I spent a lot of my time. We weren't going to kill ourselves out of that conflict. It wasn't a number of Taliban I could have taken off the battlefield that would have shifted things at all. It was really about focusing on the population. And so I knew my role to be that. And that's what I did, a lot of it.
Yeah. Because I was in Afghanistan multiple years before, so I was out there 2002, and I wasn't in that sector. I was up in
Mhm.
Kabul,
Yep.
but the locals that we connected with and we spoke to, great people, and
Yep.
they make some good food as well. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the most, generous, selfless people you'll ever come across. I mean, just the common people over there. I mean, there were some leaders that were poisonous and toxic and predatory, but I just found the people to be incredibly incredible.
yeah, yeah. And how long was that deployment for yourself?
That was a 12-month deployment.
That was 12 months. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Um, so you come back, head back to Alaska, and you're out in Afghanistan in summer, so it's pretty hot, right? Pretty
Yeah.
hot
We
out
came
there.
back. We came back. It was pretty warm. Of course, I'm up 8,000 feet on my base, so um, it wasn't too extreme. Or too hot, I should say. And then we came back in February. So, we get back, it's this kind of the dead of winter in Alaska, but very shortly, starts to turn into spring. And then I changed out in June of that year. This is 2010 now, to move on to my next assignment, which was Germany.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, before we move you and your family from Alaska, how did your family find it in Alaska? You know, in an area that most of us probably won't ever experience.
They loved it, and I'm proud of that because they really embraced all of the assignments. We got a chance to immerse in that culture and see the sights and sounds and all of that Alaska gives. So we embraced that, and my kids made some good friends. And it was a small base and a small unit. We were all very far away from home, so naturally we bonded with each other. So from that respect, it was really great. We made some lifelong friends there, but it was also very difficult
Mm,
because I was headed to Afghanistan during the surge when we were losing a lot of soldiers. And so they had that weighing on them the whole time, both before I left and while I was there. So it was very stressful for the family. And, we really bonded tightly because of it.
okay. Well, I'm glad they, like you say, enjoyed it and embraced it. That's really cool to
They
hear.
did. Yeah.
Then you mentioned about heading out to Germany. So Ramstein comes to my head. I don't know if that's where you went.
No, that's a big Air Force base there. I mean, it's tons of service members there. I was in a place called Hohenfels, which is Bavaria, southern Germany, about 20 minutes from Regensburg, hour from Munich. Oh, what an assignment that was.
You enjoyed that?
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. Why? What made it so good for you?
So many things about it. One was that we're on the other side of combat now, and I'm in a unit that's not going to deploy to war. So there was that comfort of, okay, here we are. So there was that. The other one is it was a training unit. So I could take all of my experiences from Iraq and Afghanistan and impart them on other units that were getting ready to go to Afghanistan. So it's an incredible opportunity to teach, coach, and mentor, which I love to do, to be able to do that. And then, of course, the culture and the climate over there, just being in a foreign country and taking in Europe was amazing. And my son really flourished, both of them in school. They got into good schools over there. And my oldest son met his future wife, and all of those things combined, it was just an amazing experience for us. And of course, I got promoted to colonel while I was over there and got selected for brigade command. So those 2 years were really a bright chapter for the Campbells.
Yeah. Again, just to help us with the timeline, what year is it that you get sent out there?
Yeah, summer of 2010, spent 2 years, came out of there in 2012.
Okay, okay. So I was, yeah, I was stationed in well, I suppose it's more middle Germany at that point. So you and I, we were in Germany in the
Same
same
time.
years, and
How about that?
I left Germany to come back to the UK in 2012. So
Okay.
we 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 were there
Yep.
at the same
Left at the
time. I
same
was,
time.
yeah. I don't know if you heard of Senelager. Paderborn is the other big town in that area.
Mm,
But
no.
that's, that's all Brits. There's no real Americans there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but no, great country. I yeah, loved my time out in Germany as well. But yeah, sadly didn't get promoted to colonel or anything. But but I'm glad you enjoyed it. And so yeah, you enjoyed that time there. 2 years. You said it was like a training center, so people will
It
come in
was.
to your place. So you had that 2 years of yeah, not being sent anywhere. Did you embrace Europe whilst you were there? Did you head to other countries
Totally.
and yeah, where did you go? Any
Oh,
good?
yeah. We went to, oh gosh, Italy, Austria. We went to Ireland. Never got to the UK. Shame on me.
What the
Um,
heck?
I know what's wrong with me. The Czech Republic. We got Poland. It's all so easy to get to there.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, we really took all that in and got out as much as we could because we knew we weren't going to be there forever. And this was a golden opportunity. So we seized it.
yeah. I mean, really disappointed you didn't come to London.
I
But
know.
well, what can we say? What can we say?
Don't give up on me,
But
man. I'll make it there.
well, I'm glad you enjoyed Germany, and it sounded like the family did too.
Absolutely.
And then you get the promotion to colonel, and like you're saying, this pyramid's getting tighter at the top, and you're making it.
Very
So
much.
did you have to do any more courses when you became this rank, and did you then go somewhere else or stay in Germany for a little bit longer?
No, I did. I I went off to the U.S. Army War College, which was another course similar to the Command General Staff College, but now at a greater level, where you're taught how to be a strategic advisor and commander. And that was a master's degree year, and so that was in Pennsylvania, and that's where we went in 2012. Excuse me, after we left Germany to spend that year in training at the Command General Staff College, and I brought my family with me. And wow, what an incredible year that was! I mean, I gobbled up that education. It really gave me great exposure to policy and strategy and things that happen at the very high levels of our military and our nation.
Hmm. And so after there, where do you go? And again, do you get to choose or do you get told?
You get to pick from a list, right? They'll say, okay, these are the brigades that are available, and which of these would you like to go to? And then, of course, your Army tries to match you with your background and experience to the right one. And so I had the 82nd was on there, the 101st was on there, and when I got selected, I got to pick from those lists, and I selected a handful of those, and I got picked up to go to the 101st, which I had never been before. So what an amazing opportunity! I had a great level of respect for the 101st Airborne Division. It's got a tremendous reputation even today,
Hmm.
and man, what an experience that was! It was just really something else. So while we're at the Army War College in Pennsylvania, I get picked up, selected to command that brigade in Fort Campbell in the 101st. And so that's our next assignment.
Okay. And Fort Campbell is where?
That's in Kentucky.
Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah. Right on the
So that,
Kentucky Tennessee line.
okay. Okay. So you go there, and again, if I'm doing the math right, this is over end of 2013 into 14, or
Right. I took command in 2013 and did 2 years,
2013.
came out in 2015.
Okay. And so what was that like for you going there? First time, I suppose, going somewhere other than a school or a college, uh,
Sure.
as commanding as a colonel.
It's incredible. I mean, I'm leading at a whole new level, and it's almost like I had my own army. It's like there was a lot more autonomy in that position where I've got a two-star boss above me, but he's focused on other things and doing other things. And he's got me now, this senior leader who's been vetted through the system and has hit all the blocks of a military career, is very experienced and ready for this. So you had your own little organization, and I was able to do things that were really important to me, namely investing in people, caring for and my service members and their families, and really starting to tell the Army, okay, these people here are the next ones we need to promote and elevate into greater positions. So just a tremendous opportunity, and I learned so much from all the people in that organization that taught me how to lead at that level. Just incredible. And then, of course, Fort Campbell and the 101st Airborne Division is a wonderful organization. It's the only organization on post the 101st. So you're kind of like your own entity, where Fort Bragg in the 82nd is this monstrosity of units and the headquarters and all that goes on. Fort Campbell is the 101st, and then the Special Operations Aviation Unit there. But it was neat. I mean, we were, the CEOs of that organization, of that enterprise, and so it's just a wonderful experience.
So with Fort Campbell, did you get special treatment not just because you're a colonel, but because of your surname?
Yeah, I went into no, I didn't actually, but I used to go into the post exchange and say, "Hey, my grandfather owned this land. I want 10% off," but it didn't work.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. So did you go anywhere in the 2 years that you were there, or you did?
I did. Yeah, I went back
Yeah.
to Afghanistan. This was a shorter tour. This was a 9-month tour because they had shortened them down by that point, and the mission had changed quite a bit. It was more about security force assistance, where we were helping the Afghan military get up on its feet. And I only took a small fraction of my brigade with me. I didn't take the whole thing. I think we went with maybe 1,100 people. I don't quite remember, but that's out of almost 5,000. So it's just a subset. So I left my deputy commander and my battalion commanders back at Fort Campbell, and I went forward with this element to do the security force assistance mission. And we were in Kandahar at this time, southern Afghanistan.
Okay. And anything stand out from that tour? Because again, you're going in another level up. You're going in
Yep.
as a full colonel.
Yeah, the mission sucked.
Oh,
Oh, I hated it. 'Cause you're not fighting. I mean, you're getting someone else to do it, and you're kinda you're on the sideline coaching and helping these guys go out and do that, and so, it's not what we're trained to do. It's not how we're born and raised in the military. We are the ones fighting. Now it was a proper mission. It was time for them to stand up and get running. But the other thing is that, this is 2014, 15, and I just thought at that point, we weren't being very smart about warfare. We weren't quite thinking of, okay, how do we establish something here that can last after we're gone? Because we never really thought about the exit plan. It was just us doing stuff. As Americans, we're just very impatient. We step in and we'll get it done and fix it, but we're not really investing the time to get them to step forward and do it. And then, of course, all these things that I believed were not right. We gave them way too much equipment. We built these bases for them, the Afghan military, that they stayed on while the Taliban was out in the village winning the war. So there's all these policy and structural things that were in place as I came in that was just hard to be able to accept and grasp and operate in that. But we had a very narrow mission focus and had some great soldiers around me. And again, as much as I could, I would interact with the Afghan leaders and people. It wasn't like my battalion command deployment where I was out on the battlefield all the time. And that was the hard part about it. So, an amazing experience in terms of being with the people and learning and growing and the experience of being there again. But just frustrating in terms of that. I wasn't really carried away with the mission set. Um, I wasn't very happy with where we were going with the mission at the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So you come back from there. Are you starting to wind down your career, or are you thinking there's something else left in you?
Yeah, interesting. And so I write about my second book is okay, now brigade command is over, right? And this is the point where you leave the field grade ranks, or you should, and become a general officer. Now, there was never a guarantee that I was going to get picked up for a star, but I had done all the things that general officers do to be able to make that rank. But there was a bit of a journey to travel to get there. I needed to get somebody I was near a general officer to be able to speak my name on the board and say, hey, Rob Campbell's our next general officer. I didn't have that. And so I kind of had to go fishing for that if I wanted to be a general officer. But this was that moment in my career where once brigade command was done, we had picked up and moved to Fort Carson, well, not Fort Peterson Air Force Base, but Colorado Springs, Colorado. And that would be our last duty assignment. And it was a chance for my wife and I and my family to really huddle and say, okay, what do we want to do? Because that chapter is now closed, that part of my military career. And now we're on a different trajectory, potentially. And this is where we got to sit down and think, okay, is this what I want to do or not? And they really had to dig deep down and say, you know what? This is not what I want to do. I don't want to be a general officer. And I wasn't bitter. It just wasn't a path I wanted to travel. I've said often that it was the first time in my military career that my path and my family's path started to diverge from the military's path and where they wanted me to go. And I had to embrace that and accept that as okay, it's all right. Because we're accustomed to waiting on the next set of orders and waiting on the next set of rank and just continuing to drive forward in this career, and it gets into our DNA, and you can't just switch that off. So I had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of discussions with people about I think it's time. And that's why we decided to make that transition because all of that was now behind us.
Okay. And did you know your next steps? Did you have a plan of what
No,
that looks like? No, no.
no, not at all. I really didn't, Gav. I mean, again, the military is easy in many respects because they give you your glide path. Here's what's next. Here's what you have to do, and this will be the assignment and the rank, and move out. Now, you might not know where you're going to live, but it's easy to follow that path. Well, now for the first time in my professional life, and I'm at the age of 49, I got a blank sheet of paper, and that's daunting. That's scary
Hmm.
because okay, how do I fill this out? I never had to do this before. What do I do? I think what saved me and what has helped me in this encore life, and I'm 6 years deep into it now, is that I knew my passion. and that is to make a difference in the lives of others through optimistic leadership. I'm fulfilling that in part on your show here because it allows me to give back and share of my journey to help others, right? And so that I knew was something that I needed to do in some way, shape, or form. How to do it was the next question. How do I do that? How could I do that? And so it was that point where, geez whiz, I just didn't know. But we made one of the decisions we made was job or geography. We chose geography. We knew we liked the southeast of the United States. We had vacation a lot on the coast of North Carolina, so we went there. And there was enough around me where I could mitigate risk, meaning I could find work and sustain myself in some way. And so that's where we moved to, and not quite knowing. And I decided to take a year off just to kind of package and process all that I had been through and maybe
Mm.
start to think deeper about the next path. So yeah, that was really the year in Colorado Springs, was thinking through all that and then making the decision, telling the Army that I'm done.
Okay. Now, during your time of transitioning out, making that decision, did you spend some time thinking back at maybe each rank that you'd gone through? Because you'd gone through essentially six ranks as an officer. Each one you've learned something.
Yep.
And the earlier ones you were saying, you were still young and
Yeah.
overexcitable, maybe.
Right.
So if you were to think back at those rank points, was there always a standout moment at each place that you go to in those ranks?
Probably. It mostly revolves around people, and and I think as human beings, we're critical of ourselves, and this is the part where I've had to really wrestle this down, because we tend to reflect on the bad things that we did. We tend to reflect on the decisions we made, and the times when we just missed it, we didn't get it right, and the interactions we might have had with people that didn't go well. And so there was a lot of that reflecting back, but I had to really embrace the philosophy of look back, but don't stare.
Yeah,
And I made decisions in my career. Not all were great, but I made the decision at the time, knowing what I knew at that moment, and doing the best that I could. I was never reckless. I don't think I was ever lazy and reckless in making decisions. So I could look myself in the mirror because of that. So really, it was just the interactions in my early career with training and leading and growing, um, and maybe not spending enough time learning something before I stepped in and had to do it, or I might have gotten burned a few times. And then in combat, decisions I made that may have got us into trouble or could have caused risks, or things like that really jumped out to me. And so those last few months in Colorado Springs were a great time for reflection and looking back on it
mm,
and thinking about all the stuff. And then, of course, along with that is all that I had accomplished. I mean, I was pretty proud of myself. I had done things that I never thought I could do. I had accomplished things I never dreamed I would do. And so there was a lot of nostalgia there and a lot of pride associated with those last few moments. And I wanted to go out on a high note like that, like, wow, you did it.
yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because we are critical of ourselves, and I think that's the military mentality, right? We always want to do
Yep.
better, strive to be faster
Sure.
and stronger and everything. But I'm glad that you managed to give that opportunity to yourself to be proud, because there's not many people that have become colonels, right? Especially full
No, you're
colonels.
right.
So
Yeah,
I'm glad you gave that to yourself.
it
So
was. Yeah, it
moving
was
on. Yeah, go for it.
great,
Sorry.
great, great time of reflection. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, so you gave yourself a year off. Your transition out sounded like it was. I would say I'm going to say it was smooth compared to others. You had
Sure,
a
that's
good
fair.
support from family. It sounds like it was,
Yep.
and you were able to kind of like process that exit. But you did 27 years. So was there times where you maybe struggled a little bit because of that length of time of your life?
100%. Still do. It's hard, Gab. I mean, military transition is just difficult work. I spent an hour on the phone yesterday with an officer who's on the cusp of transitioning out, sharing my lessons. And of course, I wrote about it in my second book, which in and of itself is very therapeutic, but very difficult. And I'll explain it this way. A special operations guy explained this to me. It's very, very poignant. The neurons in your brain, I get a little scientific and I'll probably misspeak a little, but they get grooved like well-worn streams where I can go from base to base to base, Alaska to Germany, and fit in immediately. I know the customs, I know the language, I know the uniform, I know the culture, everything. Easy, right? I could jump into all these things. On the outside, all that's gone. I can't use that language anymore. I don't wear the uniform. I don't have the rank. People aren't standing up in rooms when I walk in anymore. All of that is gone overnight. And so now I'm walking on the edge of this well-worn stream. My brain is working harder because I have to bottle up some of that language. I have to adapt to this big pond that I'm in. And that manifests in stress and depression, which I've experienced, not to a grand extent. I've had a great support network around me, but it's been difficult for me on the outside because of all that the Army gave me and all that was there for me and what I experienced, having to adapt into this new space. And I made a conscious decision to thrust myself into the private sector, not go back to military contracting or get a job on a base, to really get into the private sector here in the United States and get to know these people again and reintegrate with them. And I've had some wonderful people that have taught me so much. But then I've also come across things that really bother me. When I'm disrespected, that's hard, because that didn't happen. Or if it happened in the military, I had legal authority to do something about it.
Yeah.
One thing that really bothers me to the day, Gav, is selfishness. When I
Yeah.
see somebody out there operating, speaking, acting, it's all about me. That really bothers me, almost to the point where I get home at night, I got to talk it out with my wife because I can't stand that when I see it. Affluence, all of that, because as military officers, I'm oozing with selflessness. It's just who I am now. It's in my DNA, and I'm proud of that. I carry that forward. But I'm in a society that, quite frankly, is polarized, is selfish, is affluent, and that's a difficult space to be
Mm,
in.
mm,
And the list goes on. And so it's hard getting out and, okay, where do I go? And accepting the fact that if I wanted to work in a big company, I don't think I go in as the CEO. I come in a few rungs down. And I should. They shouldn't expect, just because of my military training, that I can immediately take over this organization. I don't have industry experience. So all those things come into play in transition, and they've been tough obstacles to get around.
mm. So what did you choose to do? Where did you choose to go and what industry?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't. When I got out, it was fall of 2016, and we had moved to the beach, bought a beach house, and really cool, really amazing. Oh my God, I'm finally free. Strange feeling, this period of time. I'd always enjoyed writing and speaking, and so I said, well, let me try some of that. And so I decided to write a book on leadership, the first one. And I did that. Spring of 17, I committed to writing a book. I mean, I had nothing but time on my hands. So I sat down and I did it. And I got a writing coach and others that knew how to do this because I didn't. And I cranked the book out. And it was at that point that I said, you know what? I could start a business doing this. I could speak, I could coach, I could teach and make some money. And that could be my profession and live out my true passion, my core purpose in life. Wonderful. Perfect. Okay, great. So I did that. I got a business ID, tax ID and a business card and a website. And I had zero clients. I didn't know a damn thing about running my own business. I mean, I knew nothing. But I started it. And so that's the path I decided to travel. And it was tough because I didn't get a client. My first paying client, mind you, spring of 17, I started this business. My first paying client came in January of 2018. It
Okay.
took me that long to find someone to pay me something for what I brought to their organization. And that was a bitter pill to swallow. And the business limped along a little bit. Now I've got a pension that keeps me afloat. I'm fortunate there. But the business limped along a little bit. I almost jumped off the ship a few times. And I took a job once at a company that lasted a week because it was just a horrible experience. So I never really did pick an industry
Okay.
and jump into corporate America and go down that path. And I don't think I could, Gavin. I think a lot of veterans suffer from this because I know what right looks like in leadership. And today, unfortunately, it's not the fault of most of these people. There aren't very many good leaders out there. There just aren't, because they don't have the good fortune you and I had of military training
Yeah.
and leadership and all those things that we experience, like combat. And so I don't know that I can be led very well. And again, that's not the fault of anybody. It's just the way it is. So I always kind of knew, like, I don't think I can work somewhere. I've got to do it myself.
Hmm.
And then in the journey, I went and bought another business, which I run. So, but I'm the captain of my own ship. And that's kind of the path that I have chosen. And that's the one that I'm on.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing all right in that area. And you've mentioned it a few times, but I'd love this moment to focus on it a bit more.
Yep,
You've written two books.
I
You've
have.
wrote one to kick things off. Should we talk about that one to start with?
Yeah. First one's called It's Personal, Not Personnel. And
Nice.
the genesis behind that title is I was talking with um, an assignment officer at Army Human Resources Command, this big monstrosity of an organization that manages all the people. And they were trying to move one of my soldiers, and the whole scenario was just really bad for him personally, with all they had going on with his family. But to this HR person, he was just a number on a chart. Cut, paste. And so I was on the phone with this guy, helping this officer of mine. And I said, look, man, this stuff is personal. It's not personnel. Okay. There's a person behind this. Gav has a family and demands upon him. And, if the Army could be a little flexible and maybe move him at a different time, then maybe that would help a little bit. And what do you get from that when you at least, say, hey, Gav, how does this impact you? Well, if you wait 30 days, everything will be fine. Okay, let's do that. You get somebody that is now motivated and more, loyal to the organization versus somebody that just got burned.
Yeah.
So it's personal, not personnel. What it describes is my leadership approach, people-centric leadership approach, specific to that brigade I took in the 101st, 1st Brigade of the 101st, because we were the number one brigade in the Army for human resource performance. And we led our division in retention. People wanted to stay in that unit because of what my leaders and I did of investing in people, getting to know them, and being vulnerable, and all the things that go with it. And that's why what I describe in that first book. So it was a joy to write, and I've
Okay.
got a bunch more. This was really what primed the pump for writing for me, because I didn't have an idea of writing several, but then I did. I wrote the second one.
Okay. So that first one's about your leadership
Yep.
style and uh, giving that as an opportunity for others to soak up, so they can bring that into their life.
Yeah,
Um,
I wrote it for military and non-military, but really I try to focus more on business, because the military's got tons of leadership books and courses to go through. On the outside, they don't. So I wanted that for some leader in our organization to kind of pick up and reference. Okay, how do I do this? What's an approach to leadership? Well, this is a way, and that's part of why I wrote that book.
That's great. And the
Yep.
second book, what's that called, and what enticed you to do it?
At ease, which, as you know, is a military term. At ease. Now, at
Yep.
ease can be take it easy, stand easy. It can also be shut your mouth. I wrote it with a period because I want it to be, it's going to be okay. But the title of the book is At Ease, Enjoying the Freedom You Fought For. Because too many veterans, as they transition out, go to that big corporation, or they surrender themselves to something they're not passionate about. And hence, don't embrace the freedom they fought for. And we should embrace the freedom that we fought for. We did things that were incredibly difficult, and we sacrificed for the mission and for the military and for our nation. And we're allowed to embrace that newfound freedom when we get out. So that's what I talk about in here. And it's a soldier's story and perspectives on a journey to an encore life and career. Because again, I retired at the age of 49, plenty of fuel in the tank. I got a long road ahead of me and a lot to do. And so when I transitioned out, there really wasn't a book like that for me to reference as somebody that had done several decades in uniform, to say, okay, how do you do this? How do you even make the decision? How do you announce it? What happens next? What's important as you make that profound change in your life? And so that book is a story and perspectives. I'm not. It's not a recipe. Follow these 5 steps. Do this. Do that. It's just what I experienced and how I thought about it. What went right, what went wrong, and I wanted to share that with others. So it's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Sounds good. And I hope to get a copy. Wink, wink. one day. So
Now,
how
for the
can
record, I mailed you one. It just didn't arrive, and I will get you a book, Gav.
I didn't want to say that on air, but you know.
Too late.
So where can people get a copy of these books if they want to?
Yeah, go to my website, robcampbellleadership.com, 3Ls, robcampbellleadership.com. They're both on there, the links to go there, and they're sold wherever they can find books. The first one is an audio version. Second one is not on audio yet, so I will get it there eventually. But you can find those on Amazon. They're up on Amazon. Pretty easy ways to get them.
That's cool.
But yeah, all that stuff's on my website.
I might look at getting that audio aspect because I got a bit of a road trip, and so
Yeah.
might do that for the next trip.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Wonderful. Well, Rob, I think this has brought us pretty much to the close of your episode.
Yeah.
Before I get to the next part, is there anything about the books, about your career that we didn't get to touch on that you wanted to?
Let me share this. And this is the central piece of advice I give transitioning service members. You know, we go from these active duty soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guards, men and women, to veterans almost overnight. And my number one piece of advice for anybody transitioning out, whether they did 4 years or they did 30, is to stay flexible. Don't drop an anchor, because you're going to go through changes personally and professionally, your family will, that I can't describe for you. Nobody can. You don't know it until you're out there and you're finally free from the grips of military service. That umbilical cord is severed. So stay flexible, because wouldn't it be nice if, when you get out there and you find that, this isn't the job for me, this isn't the community for me, this isn't whatever it might be, because I found all those things in my own transition. Wouldn't it be nice if you could course correct easier? So don't rush out the gates, shed the uniform, buy the house, the boat, the car, anchor yourself down with all these things that you can't move from. Because we moved 4 times since we left the military. We're finally in a place that we're going to call home, but it was a journey getting there. And I didn't necessarily remain flexible. We were able to unplug from places and move on, but it might have been a little easier had I made some different decisions. So a friend of mine the other day described it as, when you transition out, it's like jumping into a pool, knowing that you got some swimming to do. Right, you're not just going to land in this pool and you'll hit your feet on the bottom and you're stationed. No, you got to paddle a bit, and you're going to go somewhere. You don't quite know where that is, but just know that there's a journey that awaits after, and the next chapter ought to be better than the last. I think too many of us believe our best days are behind us. How could I top being the brigade commander of the 1st Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division? How could I top that? I have to. And I am doing that through writing. I'm doing that and, having great conversations with guys like you, and serving again, which remains in my DNA. So stay flexible and know that it's a journey. You're going to travel it.
That's some sound advice there for sure. And I'm sure others will listen and take heed of that. So this actually does bring us to the point of giving advice. And so you've taken the part of giving advice for veterans, but do you have advice for people that are thinking of joining the military? That might not be the army, but the military as a whole in any sector. Any advice for those people?
Yeah, go for it. I still think it's one of the best decisions you'll ever make. You heard my journey. I made it, I wouldn't necessarily say by accident, but not necessarily with all of the things that I benefit from today. I didn't have those things in mind when I signed up, but it made a profound positive impact on me. You're not going to get that experience anywhere else. You're just not. Where I don't care what military you join, it will strip you of your individuality. It will wean you of all those things selfish about me, and make you part of a team that's greater than yourself. And it will stick with you the rest of your days in very positive ways. You will come out, I believe, better prepared to take on just about anything. Life is a difficult, challenging journey full of obstacles and setbacks and crises. And military training can help you navigate those things better. Again, if you only do a single enlistment of 3 or 4 years, or you do a full career, it's a wise thing to do.
Hmm.
And so I would embrace that. And there's so many opportunities in today's military that were not there in days of old. Education benefits, chance to travel and experience new cultures, be a part of what I consider to be the most diverse organization on the planet. You know, with all the DEI focus, the military is a gold mine for that, where
Hmm.
it thrusts you into those places of diverse, genders, ethnicity, religion, everything. And it's just tremendously beneficial. So, yeah, it's tough. They're going to send you some nasty places, and it is a profession where you might get shot. All of that comes with it. All right, it's a full package, but it will change you in positive ways.
Yeah. Some sound advice there, and yeah, I echo everything you said because
Hmm.
there are some places you won't enjoy, but what you shared, there's a lot that you did enjoy. So definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely give it a go. Well, Rob, yeah, thank you so much. It brings us to the end. How was it for you coming on the show and sharing what you did?
It's wonderful. This is again, this is my flow state, Gab. When I can, get on here and share things I got right and got wrong, and the vision I have is someone's listening to this, right, or will listen to this, and like, oh wow, wasn't thinking of that. Oh, okay, that's a neat idea, and they take that advice and they move on a path in their life that brings them to a better place. That's why I do this. It's Saturday. There's 1,000 other things I could be doing, but this is what I love to do. So it's been a pleasure.
Good. Well, thank you so much for giving up some of your time, yes, on this Saturday, and sharing what you've gone through. But yeah, that time thing, we don't have infinite amount of it. So thank you for giving some of that up for the show.
Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.
And lastly, I say this to all my guests. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
No problem. This has been Military Veterans Podcast. Out.